Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the SNL Stats podcast. My name is John, back in the driver's seat after a week off of the podcast. If you haven't checked out last week's show, just like Toonces the Driving Cat, I handed the keys to the podcast over to our superfans, Sammy, Bill, Haynes, and Haskell. They did an incredible job. I really hope you check it out. It was practically a 2-hour show where they went over their top 5 lists of the best SNL meta moments, political impressions. They even played some games. So it's a really fun show if you're looking for something to listen to before SNL returns next week. I think you'll really enjoy it. I also think tonight's show will be really interesting to get you excited for SNL coming back. We have 3 shows in December, so this is our last off week, and I wanted to do something fun for any SNL historians out there. So tonight we are live with James Stevens. He is a huge SNL fan and a collector of SNL memorabilia. So for all of you SNL history junkies, this is the show for you. So James, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Doing great, John. Thanks so much for having me. And thank you for, providing this platform for everybody to kind of, it's a really cool community. And Sammy K and team last week, it was a fantastic show, as you mentioned. So check it out if you haven't. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was Sammy's first time hosting, and he crushed it. So I'm looking forward to doing more superfan takeovers, probably over the holidays, so you guys have something to listen to if you're traveling and stuff like that. Some fun and games after these next 3 shows. But let's focus on tonight because I think this is going to be really, really cool, and I want everybody to get to know you a little bit because we had a conversation over the last couple weeks about your love of SNL and your connections with some of the things that you've collected over the years. And I would love to hear how you got into SNL and what your history with the show is.
Yeah, for sure. That's always the shows that you've done. You bring on the new person and you kind of go, how did you fall into the SNL love fest or whatever? For me, it was somewhere around 1988, 89. I think it was the 50th anniversary special, which would have come out in September of 89. That and also the best of Saturday Night Live on Nick at Night, which I think started in 1988, if I'm not mistaken. But those were like 30-minute chunks, primarily, at least what I remember, were like the first 5 years, but edited down in 30-minute shows. So it was kind of, strange sometimes, like just 2 sketches or whatever. But for me, I remember the 50th anniversary special. I was probably, I think, in 7th grade, and just, a star-studded audience. The opening montage listing of people after, person after person, which, now we've, seen the 25th anniversary and the 40th, just blew everybody's mind away. But as a junior high, James Stevens, the 15th anniversary, seeing sketches, Chopping Broccoli, Ed Grimley, it's funny to kind of go back and watch that. At this point, you see Chevy Chase at the beginning, talking about backstage, doing the fall or not doing the fall. Lauren trying to talk him out of, not doing the fall because he's getting up there in age, and he goes out there in the balcony and he's got popcorn or whatever and drops it all over Donald Trump, who was not the same Donald Trump we have today.
No,
which is just not. Sort of interesting to see him from just that point of view. But after Tom Hanks's monologue, which I think he opened it and it just went straight into the Wolverines sketch and just, started playing things back. So for me, I was just like, what is this show? I know you and I had talked about, for you, I think it was the 40th, wanting to go back and do a little bit of research.
Yeah. So, I mean, the 40th anniversary, I don't know if I've actually spoken about this on the podcast, but it was the 40th anniversary. I was into the show and I loved the show prior to it, but it was the 40th anniversary that I think what you're describing. I think we're so similar in that it is that moment. For me, it was when, Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake, and I've admired Justin Timberlake my whole life. And, when I see the two of them and then they say like live from New York and it pans to the entire audience at the 40th, and then you have the credits where it just like, it never stops. Like the credits
Right.
just, it was like they introduced like 100 people were in the cast that night. And I remember like I'm sure this is a podcast for super fans, so like I'm not afraid to be nerdy here and say that I PVR'd or DVR'd that, the SNL 40th. And I would sometimes like play the opening of the 40th to hype me up because I was so, it just gave me like chills. Even like as I'm an event producer and I'm an event MC outside of this podcast stuff. And there was a couple times I remember like I put it on before I would go to an event and I would host an event. And I just like really like it put myself in this like SNL mode. And there's something about these anniversary shows that are just like so cool. So I think the fact that the 15th was so inspiring for you is like, it totally makes sense how you got into the show.
Well, and I remember, no, it's spot on. But after the 15th, and kind of getting more into the show and watching it as not just a casual viewer, but being regular, tuning in, each week kind of thing and starting to record them and all that. But then the 25th anniversary was, I think, the next, real thing that they celebrated. And I just remember it was a time where, the internet was now a thing and people were spotting celebrities entering 30 Rock at the 25th and just going, oh my gosh, this person's there and this person's there. And then the 40th, like what you're talking about, just as the opening montage with all those names, I remember NBC came out with, I think, 3 different teasers. They were like 15 seconds. I don't think they were 30-second teasers that just had the names popping up there on the home base stage to tease folks that these are the people that are going to be there. And I just remember just getting super, super psyched to just see what they were going to do with the 40th. And it was, of course, that was still one of and Lauren talks about that as, probably one of the best shows I think he's said he's produced probably.
Yeah, for sure. And we could do like a whole podcast on these anniversary shows. And even the after parties from the anniversary shows, there's a ton of stories that are out there about those. So if you haven't checked those out, I know that the 15th and the 25th anniversary, they are like floating around somewhere on the internet. So it's worth checking out as part of like a piece of SNL history. But James, I'm curious also, besides the 15th anniversary, do you have like a favorite era or favorite set of cast members that really you feel like is your cast?
And everybody always says it's the, where your high school team, which is very much for me similar. For me, so here's a kind of a strange thing that kind of also gravitational pull to SNL. For whatever reason, it was Martin Short. There's a movie, Inner Space, that I think came out in like 1987, which, I don't know how many of you out there have seen the film, but, he's kind of Martin Short plays kind of a manic, crazy person who got injected with anyway, I won't get into the whole thing, but there's this scene where he's kind of manic dancing to Twisting the Night Away in the typical Martin Short, kind of almost Ed Grimley style. And I'm like, who is this guy? And then it's like Three Amigos comes out in 1986. And so it was like Martin Short in particular, when he showed up again at the 15th anniversary, that was that gravitational pull for me. Now, even though Martin Short might have brought me to get excited about the show, John, he was in the cast for that, that 1 year, which is, people talk about the Steinbrenner, season. For me, I think Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks, John Lovitz, David Spade and Chris Farley, Norm Macdonald, when they came a little bit later, like that kind of collection of folks. Phil Hartman is always going to be my, favorite dude. I mean, he just was a 10 in everything he did.
Yeah, no, he was. And if you're looking for more Phil Hartman love, we did some of that last week on the podcast, of course, and sorely missed. So, I could totally understand as someone from that era, absolutely like loves and admires him for sure. So that's great. I mean, I really kind of get your love of the show from that time, and now I want to pivot to how you began collecting all this memorabilia and things that you have now, because were you always a collector of things, beyond SNL?
That's an interesting question. I guess probably, like Star Wars for me, before I can even have a recollection of, seeing the films, I had always those, Kenner Star Wars action figures and stuff. So, and now my boys, my sons play with them, and, they're not in pristine condition or, unopened. They're all over the house and, have probably bite marks and things on them. But, Star Wars was probably a big collecting thing, collected baseball cards maybe for a short spell. And anyone who's maybe probably in their 40s would even remember like Garbage Pail Kids. That was like a ripoff of Cabbage Patch. And those were cards that I remember in junior high collecting, and we weren't allowed to bring them to school. They were just, naughty or something. But SNL, I don't even know, it was just, probably started with books, or just starting with collecting, recording on VHS at the time, just episode after episode. And then, they start releasing things almost within these anniversary specials, these different kind of collector items, whether they're figurines or whatever, came out, for the 25th and different things like that. So over time, I think people would probably get them, for my birthday or Christmas or something. And then I would just hang on to them. And before you know it, you're a collector or a self-proclaimed archivist, I guess, or something. But so yeah, it's the thing.
Yeah, and for those who are watching on video, you could see behind James, he has a ton of SNL things that he is showing on the screen, and that's his office setup that he has for us. And I want to kind of get into some of your favorite pieces, but I think an important starting point is to really discuss. You mentioned two different things. One is the collection of SNL recordings, which is, the episodes that you record on VHS. And then there's the actual, set pieces and things that are used in the sketches. So let's kind of, separate those two things and talk about the different types of memorabilia, because with regards to, recording VHS tapes of things, there's a lot of episodes out there, as someone who went back and watched the entire run of the show. Some of the episodes and the original copies are very difficult to find because of, music rights and, things that have been, sketches that have been cut out or cut down for whatever reason over the last 45 years. So a lot of these, original copies of these episodes are actually, I would think, very rare and ones that a lot of people are searching for.
No, I agree. And just not to get into the weeds with like sort of my day job or whatever, in terms of, I'm not a lawyer or have any kind of legal background when it comes to synchronization rights or copyright. But, that's the answer for the folks who are going, why can't I see all of these things? I mean, sometimes they'll do the things where they, swap music out or cleanly edit something. But for the most part, even the musical guests or things that have background music is what makes it all complicated. And the closest thing we got, I think, was not 100% accurate, but the first 5 years when those came out on DVD number of years ago here, not that long ago, but it was at a time where DVD was a thing, and now it's more digital. So I'm just not to get in the weeds, John, or to get on a side tributary, but I know that those are things that I see people in the Reddits and then in the different discussion groups talking about trying to access different episodes. And at least we have on Peacock now where we can see a lot more than we used to be able to have easy access to. So that's good. But you're right. It's hard to watch the entire episode as it aired in its original form, especially the older episodes, and so have been collecting those for quite some time, as well as kind of like the specials, I guess. Like Biography did a thing on Lauren and the Show several years back. E Network. There's just been a lot of different specials over time, where, especially for me, I've really enjoyed those kind of behind the scenes type things. So those, but then I think you were asking a little bit about the more tangible.
Well, yeah. So let's kind of close the chapter on the episode. Like the actual VHS tapes that you were saying about the recordings of the episodes, because I know that they're, if we don't talk about it, I know that there's going to be a lot of people who are listening that are going to ask questions about it, because like there are some wonderful blogs out there that do recaps now of episodes from like the 70s and the 80s and 90s. And I know that a lot of them are like, oh, does anybody have an original copy of this sketch or this sketch? And I am curious from you, like, is that something that, as an SNL historian, are these things that are like sacred that you hold on to, that it's like, okay, I don't want to necessarily share these? Or is this something that, like you kind of feel that everybody should have access to all of these sketches?
I think that without getting myself into trouble or again to copyright trouble,
Yeah.
I think that it's most people are just wanting to see what they've missed and be able to partake in it. And I understand NBC or Broadway Video being able to not distribute, but if your question is one of the I guess I would say it this way. One of the things that is so remarkable, admirable about your show and the community, John, is just people leaning on each other and having the opportunity. Again, look, to me, this it's easy for me to look in the mirror and think about the Star Trek sketch that's like, it's just a TV show, people, come on. But there's also a part of me too that's like, I do have a day job that is not related to any of this stuff, but there's something about the therapeutic nature of comedy, and just like laughter is the best medicine, even though the Jack Handy quote will say that something about his family dying of tuberculosis or something.
Yeah.
So I digress, I guess. But
deep thought.
No, I mean, this is so in the memorabilia things is, I was going to pull this out.
Go for it.
Michael Streeter is a guy that probably some of the people in the community know, but he wrote a book several years ago on the films of Tom Schiller, who was there in the early days and then came back in the 90s. Schiller Reels, the digital shorts. So when he was putting together this book, it was at a time where there wasn't as many of these community groups that had access to episodes. And somehow Michael found me, and there was a couple different episodes with the Schiller reels, the videos that he could not locate. And he asked, hey, do you have these? And of course I did, and was helpful. And, one of the cool things, so this usually sits on the shelf back there, is on the acknowledgement page here is, thanks. And there's my name right there, James
Awesome.
Stevens, on the same page that has Lorne Michaels, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, all these people. So it's like, that's really one of the, like, the cool, like, geek out moments is like, you're listed in an acknowledgement of some of your heroes and some of those legends. But that's an example, I guess, John, of just going, look, some people just want to revisit history. And there's a part of SNL that really is that timestamp of what was going on in the country and the world that week.
Yeah. So James, I mean, here's the thing that's interesting is that we've made a lot of really good comparisons over, since we started this podcast, between professional sports and Saturday Night Live. And this is where I would struggle if I didn't have access to some of these old sketches and things like that, is that, if we're talking about somebody breaking a record, or has this ever happened before, we talked about the Dave Chappelle monologue this season, which was right post-election. And it turns out that, through my research, I've determined that that was the longest monologue of all time. But if I didn't have access to every monologue since 1975, there's no way of knowing that. The same way we don't know that if certain, baseball statistics or Patrick Mahomes, throwing for the most yards. Like, imagine there was some game from the 60s where somebody threw for 600 yards and we didn't know about it. And, like, there's just so many examples that I could think of that as a historian, it would be frustrating to kind of not have that information. So what I would say is that I think you brought up an excellent point, which is that we are in the process, of building a community of SNL fans that can lean on each other. And that's not to say that we're, we certainly respect NBC and Broadway Video and their intentions with all of the sketches. But the truth is that, I want to continue to connect with SNL fans and people like you who have access to these things so that we can talk about SNL, understanding the full scope of the history of the show. And I think that's super important.
No, I agree. And it's why, when you watch one of those rebroadcast episodes and there's like a film that was placed in there in place of some sketch for whatever reason that was pulled, and you're like, man, I heard about this sketch and I was looking forward to it, and it's not in the rerun or the version that I have, and how do I find that? And there's people out there that have it, and in most cases people are friendly and nice and supportive and aren't going to get into trouble, I don't think. Again, being careful with how I say that.
But no, you're right. You're right. And I'm only having the discussion because you are the right person to have this discussion with, as somebody who is, recorded their own shows. And there are other people like you out there who have, recorded stuff and collected. But I think it's really cool to talk about because it is something that's on people's minds when they're like, they get inspired to go back and watch the show. But I want to move on to the other stuff, which is all of the memorabilia that you've collected that's just beyond recordings of the episodes, because you have a lot of really cool, things from the show that I'm sure people would love to see and hear how you got them.
Yeah. And, I don't know the best way to, kind of do show and tell, because, this is my home office and I've got a lot of it there on the shelves behind me or over here. But, like I said, figurines, Funko Pop characters are now kind of the cool, more recent hip things that are out there. But, everything from Matchbox collectibles to calendars over the years. They've had a series of, I think the most recent one was 2018. There's all sorts of drinkware that I have, like mugs, tumblers, shot glasses. There's playing cards. Those came out here pretty recently. I have Saturday Night Live socks, costumes, puzzles, board games. In fact, I think there's like 4 different versions. There's one that came out, I think, in 1993. There was a trivia one, and then the Trivial Pursuit DVD edition came out. The most recent one, actually, my wife got me for my birthday, and I haven't opened it yet, but is this one here. And it tells you that actual product and colors and components may vary. So just so that's a nice disclaimer there, John, in case you're, wondering.
I was, but you mentioned the Funko Pops, and I do have the Dick in the Box ones. So
yes.
That would be. I got those from a friend for my birthday. So
yes, I've got those back there, and the more cowbell and the Spartan cheerleaders.
So what would you say if I was like coming to your home and we were going to hang out and I said, like, you got to show me your 3 favorite things that you have that you've collected from SNL over the years? Do you have like a top 3?
Let's see. So there's some old periodicals, TV guides from the 70s, some really old, magazines. Some of them are framed back there on the wall. There's some, now I haven't done a whole lot with some of these production documents, like rundowns, like, for those of you that are, Saturday Night Live savvy kind of behind the scenes people, on the pink sheet of paper is the dress rehearsal rundown, and on the green sheet of paper is the live rundown. But then I also have some like studio schedules, like some rehearsal schedules, like in the studio, and when they blocked casting calls for different things like that. But the cue cards, I've got a couple cue cards from the show. One of them is the live from New York. It's Saturday night from, I think that one was from the 2002 Cameron Diaz Jimmy Eat World episode. And then I have one that says, we have a great show. Beck is here, so stick around. We'll be right back. That was from the Jennifer Gardner episode in 2003. So those cue cards are kind of one of the things that I enjoy. Here, let me show you this, because I do have a couple things that I wanted to show and tell.
Well, actually, wait, before you get to that, because I do want to comment on the cue cards. Also, I know that Wally, the cue card guy from the show, wonderful person. He actually has something out there now where he will make you a custom cue card if you reach out to him. He's doing that, and I believe they're for order. But if I know that was an initiative that I don't know if he started over, since March, since COVID started. But I think it's really like wonderful that, people, if you want a custom cue card created for you, that is an option that's available from Wally. So if you want to reach out to him on Twitter, I think that is something that you can do as well.
No, that's John. Thank you for mentioning, because Wally is a good human being, and most everybody associated with that show is just a great family that kind of love working together. But yeah, I think Wally did put that together here sort of during pandemic times, and it's just reasonably priced, and get your own cue card with your name on it or whatever is really pretty cool. From the crew standpoint,
yeah, sure.
I have some of these jackets, like crew jackets. Like this one is from like the early 80s, which is one that I don't really wear out too often, as you can probably know.
Wait, can you tell me about that? So this is something, because people are gonna have questions. So this is something that the crew would wear during. So this is from the 15th anniversary, right?
This one is from the 15th anniversary, okay. And so a lot of times they would get these for special, obviously 15th anniversary. A lot of the crew would wear them. The studio's cold because they keep it, kind of chilled because the lights and all that kind of thing. But then it's just, kind of one of the part of the perks that they would get. I know there's a few years ago, Lorne always does a really pretty nice Christmas gift for everybody. And he did, I don't know if you've seen these Converse sneakers, Converse tennis shoes with
I think I have
script logo on the side.
So cool.
Yeah, and so everybody got one of those and a little card that says Merry Christmas from Lorne. So I think that's what kind of these things are. I was excited to kind of come into, because we saw this one so often at the 40th.
Yeah.
And the live from New York since October 11th, 1975. So, some of these pieces are kind of just fun to kind of have in the collection. That 40th one is one sometimes I do wear out just because it is really
I would
is really a nice. That's a Roots jacket.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and. Speaking of the crew, again, this is just kind of like random stuff. Like you always see them with their badges and their credentials. So, got one of these. It never really got me personally access. But sometimes you just, find ways in which you run into those.
So for everyone who's listening on audio, James showed 3 different jackets. So there was a 15th anniversary one, a green one, and a 40th anniversary one. and as well as different press pass, or not press pass, a crew pass that for people who want to enter the building. So you should definitely watch the video if you want to see them. But for those who are on audio, I just want to make sure I say what you're showing as well.
Good point. Yeah. Because in fact, I usually do that myself. Listen to the audio. I think I shared that with you. One of the other things that I've been, and I don't have these on the wall just yet, because I've been trying to just get them all put together here, but these cast photos, so here's the one from the first season here, and I don't, obviously the audio folks are not seeing this, but here's the infamous season 6 folks, Denny, Dylan, and friends. But
no Eddie Murphy there, I don't think, right?
Not yet.
No.
That one is, let's see, I have one here. I just had a few of these that I pulled over here by the desk. Here's Eddie Murphy, them walking. That's, I think, 1982, 83. But those are actually, those that have seen it and those who are listening on audio are the press kits that NBC would, take the cast photos. They don't do it exactly. They still take cast photos, of course, but I mean, they would send those to the, the affiliates and the different stations, and on the back of them, I've got them in a frame here, of course, but on the back it lists, left to right, who all the people are, and it has the little, Saturday Night Live every Saturday night at 11:30 Eastern, and that kind of little write up on the back. So that's kind of cool. One of the things that I did want to, when you said what's one of your coolest things, is when I went to one of the shows in, I want to say this one was probably in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004. Somewhere in there, I was, getting some autographs and doing things like people tend to do, and there was a piece that came out about the SNL women in Newsweek, or I can't remember exactly what magazine it was, but here I ran and grabbed the magazine and was fortunate enough to actually have all 5 of these fine women actually sign it, and I've got it in the frame right here. So tell the audio listeners who's in that photo. Right. So we've got Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, Anna Gasteyer, Rachel Dratch, and Maya Rudolph. So of course, they weren't all just there walking out of the elevators at the same time, but was fortunate enough to get to meet them and have them sign that. So that was kind of one of the things that is kind of fun to have here hanging on the wall.
That's amazing. Look, you have a lot of really cool things, and I know that there's even more. How many pieces of SNL memorabilia would you say that you have in total?
It's hundreds.
Okay.
I figured you were going to maybe ask that, John, and I probably need to do something like a true historian, or in an archive where you would have everything listed. And I need to do that so that I can answer that question better. There's 2 things that I can't show you that are in the garage, actually.
Okay.
And one of them is. If you've ever been in New York City and you've been on the subway, they have all these big signs that stickers, or just, billboard type things on the walls that advertise films, TV, everything like that. There's a really cool one that was promoting the 40th anniversary. And it's in pretty nice condition. It was one that was not used, all, kind of rolled up when I got it, so I could just put it on the garage and on the wall. And also from the 40th, if you were there or have seen in photos or video, especially the red carpet prior to the SNL 40th, there 30 Rock at the ice skating rink where they have all those flags. They had those big SNL 40 flags It's something I was trying to land for quite some time, and finally have one of those. So it's hanging proudly in the garage. But yeah, just a lot of just weird, random pieces. And I probably need to just, as you suggest, John, count them
log.
Yeah, have them logged, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is really cool. Again, if you're not watching the video, you're missing out on seeing some really, really amazing pieces of SNL history. But I know that there are going to be people who are going to ask me or ask the show, like, how did you come into some of these items? And I don't need you to give away your secrets or your friends that may have, done you some favors and given you some things. But, for someone in general who is asking, how do you go about collecting SNL memorabilia? Is there some advice you can give to some people who would be interested in maybe starting their own collection?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen on Reddit a lot of people recently who have, found some of the Jack Handy books recently, or there was a post recently that I saw on that, or, any of the, the little Matchbox cars, like the Swill truck, you can find so many things on eBay, or Amazon Marketplace or things like that. And it's one of those things that often I just find myself every day, every couple days, sometimes, sometimes life gets busy and it's not as frequently as that, but to just, get in there and check. And, eBay, you can sort by, everything from most expensive to least expensive to newest post, and kind of just see what things are there. A lot of times I'll go through SNL memorabilia, I think, is one of the things you can check, rather than just like Saturday Night Live period, because then you just get so many DVDs and videotapes, it's been there, done that. But some people are really collectors of all those DVDs, and even the VHSs. Some people just like to be really thorough and complete the set of just having those. And so it can be a lot of fun, without giving away secrets or saying here's how and that kind of thing. I guess I would tend to just underscore the fact that for me, even though I love the comedy, I've mentioned cast members that I've really gravitated towards over the years. For me, there's something about the show that is a callback to, it's almost the live element is its own personality, as well as, paying homage to old timiness of live television. When you've got cameraman John Pinto, in that bucket seat that is in that crane camera, there's more high-tech things that people could use these days to capture the same kind of shots. It's done for a reason, and it's because there's that show, our show that we're talking about right now, has a certain amount of pride and nostalgia, I think, to its roots and television's roots, and it's kind of a long-winded way to say, John, but it's like the crew is really, really just the best in the business and just some amazing people, and it's that probably amazes me or has me as excited, if not more so sometimes, than the actual performers, especially the times that I've been fortunate enough to see the show live. During the actual commercial breaks, and you see the choreographed chaos of just moving things in and out, is just, there's nothing else like it.
It's amazing. And whenever I have a discussion with anyone about the crew and how they put the show together, I always go back to a podcast that I used to listen to about SNL with two writers who used to write about the show, named Mike Ryan and Ryan McGee. And they did I think it was the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. And I used to listen, and they would say, regardless of how you felt about the show on any given Saturday night, it's a miracle that the show gets done, in time and put on at Saturday at 11:30. And everybody knows that famous quote of Lauren saying, we put it on because it's 11:30. But that is true. But the amount of hard work that goes to get the show on every single week, it's almost like you don't even see it when you're watching the show. But if you really, if you were there and you attended a show, or you spoke to some of the crew members, or really got into what goes into the entire week of making that show, you would know how difficult it is to produce it and why it is not easily replicated. And that's the thing, people have tried over the years, and there are certainly other shows that people love that are in the vein of Saturday Night Live, but there is only one SNL, and it is because of how hard the crew works to put on the show.
No, it's true, and I know we're maybe kind of in a different different trail of thought here, but something came to mind when you said the Lorne Michaels comment, we go on not because we're ready, but because it's 11:30, is Don Roy King, the current director, who's been there for a number of years now, just very talented and just so humble, just one of the best in the business type of folks, who just said, when he first got there, he's like, there's no way that this is the way they do the show. You can't do a show this way. And he's just like, I don't know how we do it, but we do it somehow. And his crew, his camera folks, and Jenna and Chris, the stage managers, it's there's no one like them and what they do in any other television show, any other production. There isn't a version of them. I mean, there are other stage managers, but it's different. SNL is unique. So
you're totally right. One of the things that I really wanted to cover with you tonight, beyond all the showing off of your memorabilia, is I know a lot of people will question in sports, there is a official Hall of Fame that you can walk into. For example, in Cooperstown for baseball, if you wanted to walk in there, and you would see autographed baseballs of somebody's a famous baseball player's first home run, and maybe their 500th home run, and different artifacts that are there. And I know this was a discussion that you and I had when we first spoke, which was that you can go right now, well, maybe not during COVID times, but during regular times, you can go to NBC and you can do a studio tour, and you can see really cool aspects of the studio. You can go to 8H, they'll show you, part of the stage, and they'll have you, sit at your own Weekend Update desk, and they do things that are very touristy, but there's not really an official SNL museum for memorabilia. And as an SNL historian, I'm curious your thoughts on that, and if you think that there should be a way to commemorate these famous sketches and set pieces more.
Yeah, so they did in New York first for the 40th, and then Chicago, I think, second and last, the SNL Exhibit. It was a touring in the sense that it was in two locations, but it was a remarkable exhibit. That I attended the Chicago version. And I think, when we bought our tickets and went in there, they said something like, it'll take you an hour to go through, or an hour and a half or something like there. And it was like, my wife and I just laughed because, we meticulously went through and looked at everything, with a very keen eye or whatever. And so, 3 hours later or something, we've basically got to the end of it. But that was remarkable in the sense that they had really, they had some documents, some letters signed by, from thank you notes from celebrity guests to Lorne that he had kept and gave for the purpose of this museum walkthrough. Priceless photographs. There were all these kind of wigs and face.
Not Kristen Wiig.
Yeah, right, exactly. Not Kristen Wiig. But one of the things that I just thought was really, really cool was encased here in this glass, these levels of the commercial parody items, like the actual boxes of, like, I have a colon blow box over there that's not obviously the original from the show, but this was all those things. This is like Woomba is sitting right there, and here's all the different like medications over the years that they've parodied and things. And so those all exist, and somebody's kept them, and they had a weekend update desk that you could go and get a photo with, as well as some of the scenery that they put together for the 40th. Some of those sketches that they did in real time there. Celebrity Jeopardy and California's and things like that they actually just took from the 40th, and then they took on the road to this thing. So that was really, really cool. But to your point, John, where is that stuff, and who's keeping those things, and how do you we're getting what is it, 4 years away from the 50th, and people are not getting any younger, and to that point, sometimes I even just get a little nervous with just, how are we going to, keep the memory alive of some of these things, and just, the important place that I think the show has had, on television history, if that makes sense.
It definitely does, and it is a question that I had asked, and I was curious about over the the last few years, because I do know that if you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, whether it's the makeup artists or the costume designers or set designers, oftentimes you'll see backstage that they do have some type of documentation, as well as like racks of old costumes and set pieces and stuff that I have seen in, whether it's specials or behind the scenes clips on YouTube in the past. I just don't know, maybe you don't know either, but I just don't know, how that stuff is properly logged in the same way, we were talking about you logging your own memorabilia. I don't know if SNL logs it in that same way. I do know that, for the 40th, for example, when you had Emma Stone come out as Rosanna, it's like, okay, well, I mean, this looks like Rosanna. I assume that they kept a lot of the Gilda Radner stuff. I like, it's probably easy to reproduce those things, but my brain as a super fan of SNL, and it almost goes to like a nerdy superhero, super fan place, where I wish there was like a room that people could walk in where it's just like you have your SNL famous costumes like all like lit up as if they're like shrines of old characters and the history of the show. So you'd have like your B costume on one side, and you'd have your like Rosanna on the other, and everything as you get through the years, and you could kind of like walk through the years and see the famous characters, like whether it's like people are going to roll their eyes, but like whether it's like a Gilly or something like that, as you kind of move more forward towards the present. And you can see these characters and walk through them. And I just hope that one day that there is something like that, because I know that SNL superfans would love to have that.
Yeah, I think they have some, like I think the John Belushi's bee costume, I think, is one that I had seen. And sometimes on the ninth floor, where the balcony is, and when you're exiting and entering from the elevators there, there's often a setup of a couple different costumes over the years that are there kind of on display. And some of those actually were in the exhibit. A lot of them, like Church Lady on forward, they started really kind of, I think, archiving those a little better. I don't recall, to what degree early on did they think the show was going to be having 45, 46, 47 seasons. If you go back, to me, it always sort of goes back to the 15th anniversary. They put that hallway together to have some of those photos on the wall at the time of the 15th anniversary. If you go back, like I was just watching from season 12, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, and Martin Short, that December episode when the Three Amigos came out, and Steve Martin goes down the hallway there in 1986. There's nothing there. So, there's a long time of like really, to me, it seems like that they were not really archiving things, to the best of their ability. And here's another point to that is when they, in the 40th and a couple times, I think prior to, the land shark showed up. They recreated that piece because they had lost, or maybe Chevy took it. Who knows? But it was, it's not like they kept all those items. And I think now they are probably doing a little bit, better job of locking those things down. But I don't know. That's where folks like you and I and the fan network of folks who just say, keep the history alive, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I said, we're building a community of people, and there are communities out there. And I hope we can all come together for the same common goal, which is that we love the history of Saturday Night Live. That is why I created this podcast. And for us, talking about memorabilia is a whole other aspect of the history of the show. So it's really, really cool to see some of these pieces. And I know I want to continue the discussion with you in the future about, things that you've collected and stories that you have from over the years. So I do want to keep that conversation going. But, while we're here and while we're talking, I'm also curious about your thoughts on the current season of the show. So how, you said, you loved the show in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. How do you feel the show is now in season 46?
I really am enjoying it. I'm very glad to see that everybody's back in the studio. I mean, I think I enjoyed the three that they did from home. They were just a different a feel, a different vibe entirely. And as we've mentioned, others have mentioned on your show here, some people have had the opportunity to shine in different ways by producing those pieces from their own homes. But there's something just about Studio 8H and being back and being live. Even though there's maybe more recorded pieces than typically because of the restrictions with the COVID pandemic, it's important to be in that place. I mean, they've been there since 1975, with the exception of a few shows. They got bumped out of there for election coverage or whatever it was at different times. But it's it's a large cast, and I know that some of the conversation that you've had on this show has been related to screen time and how the featured players and some of the younger folks joining the team will have their opportunity to shine, and I think that they will. But I just enjoy that the fact they're coming back with three more. It sounds like they're just trying to be very, very careful and cautious with making plans and determining how they're doing things with the limited number of audience. It's already a small studio in terms of that audience, and it's cut in half or slightly, maybe even more than that. But to think about just the studio and the number of folks that have been associated with that show for such a long time, I'm just so glad to see that we're back to normal, I guess, as to whatever normal that can be, in producing the show that we've all come to. I don't know. We just need it. We need laughter. We need, there are times where when the show is not in production, we go, oh man, we need Saturday Night Live right now to comment on this thing, whatever it is. And I would be remiss to not say again, just, to go back to the crew and the studio being what really kind of glues the whole thing together. Recently, Hal Wilner, who had been music coordinator for such a long time, Phil Himes, lighting director, lighting designer for forever, are some of the more recent Joe Dixo, stage manager from back in the day. No one's getting any younger, and everything from Lauren, I think he just had his 76th birthday earlier this month. I'm glad that we're together again, and we're making some comedy, and and when we're not laughing, we're at least there's something about SNL. I think that you think about the first show after 9/11 and some of the other different tragedies, that sometimes they just know how to comment to say, we're all in this together and we're experiencing it together like no other show really does. And so I know that's probably not exactly the kind of answer you wanted to hear in terms of who's your favorite cast member and
no, you know
thing,
what,
but
James, we get a lot of people who are on the show who get an opportunity to tell us about their favorite cast members and favorite episodes and stuff like that. I think what you answered, the way you answered the question, is exactly what I was looking for, because we had these 6 episodes to start the season, and it was so nice to be back. That's what it really felt like. It was like getting back together with family. And you're talking about the crew that have been at the show for so many years that aren't around anymore, and to see your cast members that some people don't love the current cast, some people absolutely do love the current cast, and everyone has different opinions about the show. But just the fact that the show is on and it looks like the show is comfortable at a time when things aren't so comfortable. And I think it's really really nice the way you said it. And it personally, it hit me a little bit more in the 3 weeks that we just didn't have the show. And I don't know, to be completely honest, to take away the, rip the curtain off, I don't know if it's because I'm doing this podcast and that I'm so invested in the show that it really felt like a little bit of a void. But it was so nice to be back even for 6 weeks. And then just to have it go away for a few weeks was like, oh, okay. Like it was like almost like a little bit of a tease. And I know this is normal circumstances throughout the entire history of the show, but it was like I was craving for this announcement of these last 3 episodes, and so glad. Things were looking iffy for a little bit, and I was really glad to hear that we're gonna close out the year and hopefully continue through the rest of the season and do finish the show in season 46 the way that it should be. So I guess to sum up, what I'm saying is that I totally agree with you that I think that there's an element of comfort we get from watching the show now and seeing all of our, brothers and sisters that are on the show on a weekly basis. And I'm just thrilled to have it after, it not being there for a while.
Yeah, no, I love how you articulated that point too. It's just, and there's something, about the brief hiatus, the 3 weeks right now, where you're just like, thank gosh, we're coming back again. And I'm still just blown away that they did 6 shows in a row.
Oh, me too. I'm not taking it for granted, please. It's for me, it's like, I'm very thankful that we had those shows and that we're having more shows. It's just as I'm sure everybody can relate who's listening along or watching us today. You can never get enough, and I'm happy that they had a break and have the holidays, and I hope that we have a killer next 3 shows, and that's really my goal. To hopefully cover them in the best way I possibly can and give you the background on a lot of really fun things that are going to happen between now and Christmas. I guess, James, before we close out today, for anyone, when I'm doing these shows and I'm telling people, for anyone who's watching these next few episodes and throughout the rest of the season, keep an eye out for, this statistic or who's saying live from New York or how much screen time people are having. I'm looking at things from a numbers and analytic standpoint a lot. But if you are, let's say, SNL Stats official memorabilia consultant, is there anything, because I know that everybody watches the show and looks for different things. For anyone who is just like you, that loves the history of, perhaps the set pieces or things that people are wearing on the show, is there anything that you would say that people should kind of look out for the rest of the season that they may not have thought of before?
Wow. That's an interesting question. There's a lot of people who watch it differently. I'll say it this way: if you're watching it live and you're able to see, the commercial bumpers, the teasers, where you can see the set, getting moved in there, and kind of Lauren standing there on the floor and all that kind of stuff. That is that's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of just like that live feeling, that you're just jumping off that diving board and you can't go in reverse. And for me, that's the thrilling part of all of it. If you're watching it on, YouTube or social media or some kind of, streaming service afterwards, you don't, unfortunately, you don't get those pieces. I don't know to what to be looking forward to, except that I'll say this. One of the other things that I do really, really enjoy, and I've enjoyed them from the beginning, and again, this is just another example of there haven't been that many people in the 46 years of the show who have been doing different jobs, is the host and musical guest bumpers. The photography that is done coming in and out of commercial. I personally always enjoy those. The funny story, when I was living in New York State, at one point there was an affiliate that cut those out to put in a promo of their own affiliate things that were coming up every week. And I was just like, well, we can't have this, this is, so I made a little fib, and I went to the affiliate and I was just like, this is, so unfortunate that you're cutting these, beautifully shot photographic, bumpers for the show. And I just want to see my aunt's work. I can't believe that you're depriving me of I want to see what my aunt is doing. I'm her nephew. Of course, I'm not Mary Ellen's nephew, but I never heard from
that would have been
anybody.
a really funny reveal for the end of the show for people who stuck around till the end of the podcast.
Right, exactly. But they fixed it like that, and they were like, sorry, and that's all it took. So I'm not condoning lying, but at least we got Mary Ellen's bumpers to show up.
No, you did your part for SNL, so we all appreciate it, and everyone who lived in your area definitely did. James, this was great. I'm so excited. I know that there's so much more that we could cover and get into, but I want to save this for the future, because we're going to be having you on definitely again, and you're a big friend of the show and a loyal listener. So I'm so happy that I got to connect with you. And where can, if anybody wants to reach out to you and talk to you a little bit more about like what you do and the things you've collected, is there anywhere where people can reach you?
Well, that's a good question, because I'm on Facebook, and I've been lurking, I guess is the way you say it, in the SNL Reddit. So maybe I need to be a little bit more active there. But this is probably me dipping my big toe in water a little bit more here, John. So it's just a pleasure to be on the program. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, for sure. And if anybody has questions there for SNL Memorabilia and the conversation we had with James, how about you reach out to me, because I'm on Twitter and Instagram and wherever you need to reach out, and I'd be happy to ask anything to James if you would like to reach out to me. So we could do it that way. Okay, well, thank you so much, James. I would like to plug once again that, we're back starting next week. SNL is back, and we have a great show with Jason Bateman, who hosted, once before, and I think it was 15 years ago. So a little bit unexpected, but excited to have him back. And musical guest Morgan Wallen, who, as everybody famously knows, was supposed to be on the show earlier in the year, and Lauren gave him a second chance. So we're all about second chances here. So happy to have him. And I think it'll be a great show. And we have Timothy Chalamet and Kristen Wiig coming in. So an exciting few episodes with regards to what's coming up on the SNL Stats podcast. we are back with our roundtables. They are going to be out on audio overnight Monday into Tuesday, so you can listen on the way to work or whatever you're doing. If you're hanging out in the house and you got kids running around and you want to tune out for a few minutes in your AirPods, it'll be available for you on Tuesday mornings. And then our videos will be available by Tuesday afternoons on our YouTube page. To not miss an episode, please subscribe on YouTube or on any podcatcher. Leave us a star rating as well if you feel like it. And finally, the last thing I just want to encourage, and I know I say this every show, but this SNL Stats podcast is created for you guys. I love the show, but the most important thing that I want to do is get to know you and people like James who reach out and say that they love the show and that they want to talk more. I mean, this is exactly what I want. So tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, and we're going to continue to workshop this thing because I want to create a community, within the SNL community that's able to talk about the show from a really cool standpoint. So that's all I'll say about that for now, but I look forward to our show next week and we will see you then. Have a good one, everybody.